Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's presentation on managing corporate fraud in a modern world. My name is Trent Green, and I lead the Treasury management team at Oakworth Capital Bank, and I will be the host for today's discussion. We have an excellent panel, and before I introduce them, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. All participants are muted, and cameras will only be on for presenters, moderator, and host in an effort to respect everyone's privacy. Our presenters will be sharing their video while they speak. Our webinar team may send messages to participants. The chat function has been disabled for privacy purposes, and if you need to reach the webinar team, please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. We'd love to hear from you. Our presenters will be available for Q&A after the presentation is complete. If you have questions, please ask them inside the Q&A feature below. The Q&A has an anonymous option that can be clicked before submitting your question. The webinar will last approximately 1 hour, and a recorded version will be available afterwards along with the presentation slides. I would now like to introduce you to today's panel. Amelia Ricks. Amelia is a Treasury management advisor in our Central Alabama market. She is going to define corporate fraud and set the stage for today's conversation. Tyler Fruland. Tyler is a Treasury management specialist in our Middle Tennessee market. Tyler is going to help us understand who fraudsters are and how they are attacking businesses. Jeff Crimmins. Jeff is also a Treasury management advisor and serves our newest market, Central Carolinas. Jeff will address 3 of the most common types of fraud our clients experience: phishing, business email compromise, and remote access. JB Patterson. JB is our Treasury management specialist in South Alabama. I've asked her to share key solutions that can help your business reduce corporate fraud, especially as it concerns your financial picture. For those of you just joining us, welcome. Let's get started. As we turn to the presentation topics, I'd like to first introduce Oakworth Capital Bank for those who are not familiar with us. We provide commercial and private banking, wealth management, and advisory services for closely held businesses, business owners, professional, and other high net worth individuals and families. Our Treasury management team is positioned in all of our markets to help support our clients. We're really glad you've joined us. I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Amelia.
Thank you, Trent, and thanks to all of you for joining us today to discuss a topic that is maybe not so fun. However, it has become more top of mind. Fraud is one of the biggest challenges that businesses face today, no matter the size. Fraudsters are attempting to gain access to you and your business using increasingly sophisticated techniques. They're also constantly changing, which means we also have to constantly adapt to keep pace with that. So now, not only do you have to run your business, manage your teams, but you also have to be an expert in fraud and know what to look for. While fraud can certainly originate from inside of an organization, we are actually seeing more trends from external threats. The economy has certainly seen some interesting days in the last few years, and this affects fraudsters as well because this is how they make their living. They also don't let a good crisis go to waste. So events like COVID, bank failures earlier this year really provide fresh ground for them to attempt to infiltrate your business. That said, they really don't need a crisis to make a move. We are knee deep in the holiday season right now. We're a little busier. We have more going on. We're trying to get things done before the end of the year or before we take that final vacation. So we do tend to see more scams pop up this time of year as these guys try to take advantage of the busy days that we all have ahead of us. So I do want to share some statistics with you. The Association of Financial Professionals puts out their annual Payments, Fraud, and Control report. So the numbers that we are going to look at reflect 2022 and years prior. So as you can see, last year, 65% of organizations were victims of either attempted fraud or actual fraud. And while that number has seen a decline in the past few years, it's still an astounding number of organizations that experienced a degree of fraud. In terms of recovery, 27% reported that they were able to recover at least 75% of funds lost, However, 44% were not so successful. And I will say some of that is going to depend on the type of fraud that they experienced. Payment types that are vulnerable to fraud, I'm sorry to say, it's all of them. However, checks tend to remain at the top of that list. And that's because check fraud is low tech, it's low cost, and it's least likely to result in an arrest. So criminals really tend to have nothing to lose from check fraud. While we have seen a decline in check writing, I don't think it's going away as quickly as all of us may have once thought. So as long as businesses are requiring that payments come in via check, those are probably going to be the most targeted. I won't go through all of these payment methods here, but you can see that credit cards, ACH, wire transfers, those are also at the top of the list because those are methods that are used most often. Wire transfers are going to be highly desirable because a wire is sent on collected funds. So as soon as that money gets to that account, they can withdraw it and walk out the door. I won't say that it's impossible to retrieve funds that have been wired out. It's extremely difficult, and so these guys know that. With the growth of faster and real-time payments, this has provided fresh opportunities for criminals to continue to take advantage of these platforms. Again, this is their job, so they're constantly researching and they're sharpening their skills as the payment landscape continues to evolve. Fraudsters can get to you or your business, your information through a number of different avenues, but probably the most widely used is through business email compromise. And Jeff's going to share some details with you on this shortly, but basically it's a fraudulent email that looks like it's coming from a legitimate source, either inside your organization or maybe a vendor. They're trying to get you to give up information or click on something. So you can see 68% of organizations experienced business email compromise, with a large number of those targeting wires because, again, those wires are collected funds. So all of this said, the top fraud trend that we are seeing, not just in our market areas, but really industry-wide, is check fraud. You can see here the number of cases reported in 2021 versus 2022 took a huge jump. And based on conversations that I have had with colleagues, again, across the industry, I have a feeling we might see this number grow as reports come out for 2023. The largest contributor to that is mail fraud. These groups are targeting mailboxes and collection points. They're paying off postal workers to gain access to the keys that open up those blue boxes in the post office parking lots. Some reports indicated that they stole up to 20 pounds of mail, just sifting through, looking for checks that they can wash and update with their own information, or in some cases, they're trying to recreate the check stock as closely as they can. Electronic payment methods are going to continue to be a useful alternative to check writing. However, in those situations where you do have to send a check, I suggest you take a few extra minutes, walk those into the post office rather than dropping them in the box, or even using services like online bill pay, where those checks are actually being sent from a secure location. That can add a layer of security. And then, of course, using services like Positive Pay, which JB is going to share some information on, is always a good practice as well. Thank you all again for joining us, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you, Amelia. We're now going to transition to Tyler, who's going to tell us who the fraudsters are and what are the attacks.
Great. Thanks so much, Trent. My name is Tyler Fruland. I'm from the Middle Tennessee area. So who are the fraudsters? The fraudsters in cybercrime come from a diverse range of backgrounds and motivations, and they can be individuals or organized groups. Some common types of cybercrime fraudsters include hackers. These individuals often come motivated by a desire to gain unauthorized access to computer systems or networks. They may exploit vulnerabilities in software or hardware to compromise systems, steal data, or engage in other malicious activities. There's also phishers. Phishing involves sending fraudulent emails or messages that appear to come from legitimate sources to trick individuals into revealing sensitive information, such as login credentials, credit card details, or personal information. Phishers often use social engineering techniques to manipulate their targets. There's also ransomware operators. Ransomware attacks involve encrypting a victim's data and demanding a ransom in exchange for the decryption key. Ransomware operators are motivated by financial gain and often demand payment in cryptocurrencies to make it harder to trace them. There's also identity thieves. These cyber criminals steal personal and financial information to commit various types of fraud, including credit card fraud, tax fraud, and account takeover. They may sell the stolen information on underground markets. There's also malware developers. Individuals or groups that create and distribute malicious software such as viruses, trojans, and spyware. These programs can infect computers and steal data, enable remote control, or carry out other malicious actions. There's also cybercrime syndicates. These are organized criminal groups with specialized roles and a clear hierarchy. They often engage in a wide range of cybercrimes, including financial fraud, data breaches, and other illegal activities. These groups can be highly sophisticated and difficult to track. And finally, there's scammers and con artists. These individuals often operate in the realm of social engineering, manipulating people into providing personal information or money through various scams, including advanced fee fraud, lottery scams, romance scams. It's important to note that the many motivations of cybercrime can vary widely, from financial gain to political or ideological reasons. Cybercrime is a constantly evolving field, and perpetrators can be located anywhere in the world, making it a complex challenge for law enforcement and cybersecurity experts to combat. Education like this, awareness, and robust cybersecurity practices are crucial for protecting individuals and organizations from these fraudsters and cybercrime. Just this week, our Director of Information and Technology informed us of the type of malware attack that is currently being used to exploit both Macs and PCs. Inform us about how the malware is disguised and when we should look for and what not to do. I look forward in our next slide here. Kind of these three main types that we see widely in the industry. It's malware, phishing, man in the middle of attack. I look forward kind of to hearing from what Jeff has to say about business email compromise in our next presentation that he is going to present. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tyler. And I think a key takeaway from that is you're dealing with very sophisticated fraud networks out there. This is not the kid down the street. These are folks that are sophisticated and put a lot of effort into this. I'm going to now turn it over to Jeff, who's going to talk about phishing, business email compromise, remote access. Take it away, Jeff.
Thank you so much, Trent. Good day to everyone. I am going to be talking about phishing, business email compromise, and remote access today. So, cybercrime and fraud, unfortunately, is a very lucrative and growing business today. A lot of it is, and through my experience and just overall in the marketplace, it is vulnerable email. I call it inherent insecurity of email with the various layers within a company's system and through their IT networks. There is generally no encryption in some cases, or not the proper encryption. And there's also not the appropriate reporting icons. And so we all want to continue as advisors to certainly support our clients and our networks out there to show them and showcase technology to prevent these type of compromises. Phishing email statistics, you can see that 2+ billion phishing emails sent daily, and that is changing rapidly. So I do feel that the banking industry as a whole is ahead of this. More technology is continuing to surface, so that's a positive. 30% of phishing emails are open, and a very key component here. The method of preventing users from responding to phishing attacks is security awareness training. This is continuing education with sophisticated IT professionals, and it has to be a routine to keep ahead of these cyber criminals. It's an impact to the company. It's an impact to communication, and it can certainly be an impact periodically to the bottom line. Next slide, please. The number one rule in prevention for these types of compromise is to think before you click. We're all very much inundated with information on a daily basis. And that's going to continue to grow as well. We don't want to open any messages that look like a phishing email. We want to report it, delete it, whatever your protocol is, and keep that routine as well. If we get hundreds of emails today, that can be complicated, but we really need to focus on that. Pay close attention to the URL. And you can also hover over the hyperlinks to see where the messages are coming from. We want a big piece of this as well as misspellings, subdomains, website containing links. There are a lot of grammatical errors, which I'll mention again as we get through these slides. There's a lot of grammatical errors and in short emails. And you never want to give out information if you did not generate the request for service. Beware, I've seen this in my history in the banking industry. I've seen urgent or threatening language, which invokes fear, urgency, panic. Again, this is keeping in tune and in sync with your IT teams, your management, and so forth with this type of communication. Next slide, please. The next two slides are examples of business email compromise. You can see in this first email that it is very poorly written. The grammar is probably first grade, second grade. I'm not sure, but it's an immediate sign. And as is the next shorter email, the next slide, it's an immediate sign to reflect on it, take it in and report it within the company. Next slide, please. Post-pandemic, we're all mixing up working remotely or working in the office, 3 in, 2 out, whatever the scenario is. Antivirus and anti-malware programs, as Tyler had mentioned, are critical in this process. Being at home, we have a lot of distractions, not to include vendors showing up and throwing us off for a few minutes. Password protected home Wi-Fi. I think here, I try to do this. If I don't work remote access that often, but if I do, with my Wi-Fi system, I certainly try to stay in tune with my vendor, spend time with them periodically, just at Q&A, asking questions, because the technology and everything is continuing to change from a security standpoint. So I try to do that, pretty routinely. VPN to the outside, to the public Wi-Fi, that is a big compromise today. It's happening on a regular basis, so that VPN connection is critical. And again, it's a broader communication with your IT teams and your management. An encrypted hard drive, and I think one of the most important things is the last bullet, which is a very experienced password manager and resources around that within your organization, and syncing with your IT team and your financial institution when you are working remotely, just to make sure that everything is connecting, communicating smoothly, to prevent, any additional compromise. Next slide, please. This is a best practices. I think a strong user ID and password combination is always important. I know personally and professionally, historically, people have certainly gotten on me. Even my own children have gotten on me about, Dad, why do you keep making up the same passwords? Maybe it's old age. I'm not really sure what it is, but I tend to do that sometimes, and I've tried hard, going forward to really mix that up. It's very important. Another key piece in your daily operating cycle is separating your accounts. It could be your master account, your operating account, payroll, AR, AP, or certainly petty cash accounts. It's very, very important to keep those separate as you do your daily functions and reconciliation. Again, I mentioned IT teams employing IT professionals to monitor and educate on best practices. And again, that should just be a routine, standard, continuing education. One thing that we discussed within our group in the last couple of days, and historically, for me, I have seen companies and industries of all sizes to review account activity on a daily basis. That should be the frequency amongst accounting teams from the CFO down. It's a recommendation, it's not a requirement, but you certainly can catch various things if it's done. If your reconciliation and overlooking what is going out the door from an ACH or wire perspective, that you're having those daily reviews and everybody's on the same page. I think that's critical. Dual control, which has been around quite a while now, between things that are going out and coming in. That's another recommendation. It's not a requirement, but it's certainly suggested that everybody sees the same thing, whether it's 2 people or 6 people, because that does prevent fraud. It is an absolute must, I think, and it is certainly proven. So, and the last thing I will say is the human factor. Oakworth Capital Bank, in all of our markets, and as we grow, we do not have call centers. We are here for you one-on-one as a team. I'm an empty nester now. You can call me 24/7. It doesn't really matter, but I'm very proud to provide that customer service through our culture, and I know our team is as well. Otherwise, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeff. I think Ronald Reagan said it best: trust but verify. So when you look at information, you see anything that's unusual, anything that just doesn't seem right, question it. There are ways to go about that. So thank you very much, Jeff. I'm going to now turn it over to JB Patterson, who's going to discuss corporate fraud solutions.
Thank you, Trent. Good morning. I apologize for the technical issues. You all have now seen the statistics and a few examples of corporate fraud. Now we'd like to discuss the ways in which Oakworth Capital Bank can help reduce fraud using our treasury management services. Amelia had mentioned earlier the rise in check fraud, and the best service that we have at the time is Positive Pay. We offer check and ACH positive pay. This provides protection against counterfeit and altered checks that are presented for payment and any unauthorized ACH debit. It works by matching and comparing data that is uploaded into our system against any debit items that are presented for payment against your account. Another great fraud management tool is ACH Debit Block, and that is just simply the ability to block all ACH debits that are trying to post to your account. Our online banking users have the ability to set up alerts inside of the online banking platform. These alerts are things such as checks clearing over certain dollar amounts, balance lower than a certain parameter, or just simply what your daily balance is. Jeff mentioned earlier the importance of dual control for wire transfer and ACH. Our ACH system allows for the setup of sub-user permissions that require information be reviewed before the money leaves the bank. We know that our business clients are extremely busy and always on the go. To help make it easier to review your transactions daily, we offer mobile banking for commercial clients, which uses the same login credentials as your desktop version. And once again, commercial bill pay. We offer a commercial bill pay system that we are able to monitor and service, which makes it very convenient for our commercial clients. As an added layer of protection, we offer a downloadable version of Trusteer. Trusteer is a fraud protection software that works in conjunction with your existing firewall and antiviral protection software to help protect your computer. We know that a lot of our business clients use debit cards for their commercial accounts. And to help monitor and limit certain types of transactions, we have a mobile banking app called Secure Lock that allows a user to know how, where, and when the debit card is being used. You can easily turn on and off the card with the touch of a button. You can set location-based controls, block international transactions, and set spending limits. At this time, we'd like to share with you how dual control helped stop fraud with one of our Middle Tennessee clients. JetRight Holdings Company has multiple vendors that are set up in our ACH system that they pay frequently. One day, an associate of JetRight received an email stating that one of the vendors had changed their bank information and provided the new information. The associate didn't think much of the situation at the time and went ahead and made the necessary changes and submitted the ACH for approval. The approver, by coincidence, had just attended an in-person fraud seminar hosted by our Middle Tennessee office and just didn't have a good feeling about the situation. At first, she picked up the phone and called the phone number in the email. And then she remembered some of the material from the seminar and decided to reach out to her primary contact at the vendor. Of course, you all know where this is going. The primary contact with the vendor stated they had not changed any of their information. And so at this point, the ACH was stopped and there was no loss to our client. At Oakworth, we know that electronic payment options are the most efficient and cost-effective ways to transact business. But we strongly encourage you to have good procedures in place with electronic banking to help protect yourself and your business. Our Treasury management team is continually enhancing and reviewing our best practices with ACH and wire transfer transactions. For a complete list of these, please visit our website under useful links or reach out to your Treasury Management advisor. Thank you so much.
Thank you, JB. And that is a good reminder. Your treasury management team here at Oakworth is available just to sit down and talk about best practices across ACH, wire transfer, even online banking, and how you might incorporate that into your company's policy. So please reach out to us. We're happy to consult with you and talk through all of these scenarios. We're now in the Q&A session. If you have any questions, please add them to the Q&A section at the bottom of your screen. If you want the question to be anonymous, please click the anonymous box before submitting your question. We appreciate everyone joining today. If you have questions that we did not cover or you want to chat with our speakers directly, please reach out. Just as a reminder, the recorded version of this presentation will be available along with other fraud-related resources on our website. In addition, the Oakworth team would welcome the opportunity to discuss today's topics with you in more detail and assist in developing a fraud mitigation plan. Now I'm going to jump to the Q&A session. We've had several questions come in. So we're going to knock some of these out. And one of the things that we get commonly here is, what law enforcement agency do I contact if I've had an issue, if I've identified fraud? And so kind of talking through this, I think the most important thing you can do, and the first step is always contact us. Contact the bank and say, I've identified an item that may be fraudulent, whether it's a check, ACH, wire transfer, debit card transaction, because time is the key here at getting that potentially returned. So that allows us to investigate. We also can complete an affidavit with you that you can provide to law enforcement. The sad reality is a lot of times these crimes are not investigated by law enforcement agencies, and there's a reason for that. Number one, they occur in such great volume across the industry in multiple markets. They cover different jurisdictional lines. They can be multi-country. So it's hard to do that and identify what is the appropriate law enforcement agency. The FBI does handle financial fraud, as does the Secret Service. In a lot of cases, they will go out, and if it is a known network or a network operating in an area, they will go in and investigate that and hopefully bring those folks to justice. At a micro level, you really run into reporting it to your local law enforcement agent. So you can take that affidavit, you can go to them and report and at least get it documented. There may be insurance services that will allow you to help recuperate some of those lost funds. Again, if you contact the bank quickly, we can jump in a lot of cases. And maybe if it's within the appropriate timelines, work on getting your funds returned. But it really runs into a gray area of timing and then jurisdictional issues. So again, if you've got specific scenarios, we're happy to discuss those with you. Another question we've had is, what are the best practices when dealing with vendors when it comes to sharing account information for payments? And I'm going to ask Amelia Ricks to jump in on that one and maybe walk through that scenario and discussion a little bit.
Yes, absolutely. Again, I referenced this earlier where, a lot of these threats and things are happening from outside your organization. So they're working with vendors. Tyler spoke a lot about some of the attacks that we're seeing, and one of those is man in the middle. So, you're having a conversation with a vendor through email, you purchased goods or, kind of whatever your conversation is there. And the conversation through that email then turns to payments. Everybody wants to get their payment faster. You want to get your payment out to your vendor faster. So using ACH or wires may become that preferred method. If that vendor has been compromised, that man in the middle, they're watching that communication. And so once they see that, okay, they're about to, exchange account information, that's when they get in, they can scrub that email and they can input their own account information. So we've seen examples of that. So one of the things that we recommend when you are communicating with vendors through email, once they send any account information to you, pick up the phone and call them with a number that you already have on file for them. Don't use a number that they have given in an email. Just to say, hey, I want to verify the account information that you've sent to me to make sure that these funds are going to the right place. Because again, depending on the way that those funds are sent, we may or may not be able to pull those back. So picking up the phone, employing dual control in these scenarios as well, particularly if you're going to send them through online banking. Jeff talked about this, have one person that enters that payment, another that approves. But, we do like to tend to communicate more through text and email these days, but picking up the phone and hearing someone's voice and verifying that information can save a lot of trouble.
Thank you, Amelia. We've got a few more questions we can get to. And I'll take this one. My customer always sends a check directly to Oakworth in Alabama, but not to me directly. Are there any issues with that situation? I would always recommend that you have a check come directly to you. That allows you to put eyes on it, to verify that it is accurate, that the payment amount is correct. We've got a number of different deposit options that you can use, including remote deposit capture for our commercial clients, and a mobile app that allows you to make deposits. And so, again, having you verify that payment, that everything is correct, that it's not a fraudulent check that someone's trying to deposit you into your account and then turn around and call you and say, hey, I made a mistake, can you wire it out? So again, just putting eyes on that item. A few other items, let's see. Jeff, I'm going to ask you to take this one, which is, what is the one thing I can do to ID and fight fraud? Probably what is the one simplest thing that someone can do? Hey, Jeff, you're on mute.
I apologize. I didn't hear that. Could you say that again, please? I apologize.
Jeff, we've had a question, which is, what is the one thing I can do to help ID and fight fraud? So maybe what is the one simplest thing that somebody can employ in their day-to-day to help them ID and fight fraud?
Well, again, I think it really does come back to the accounting teams within a company. If it's an individual in a company that manages the daily operating cycle, or receives and sends out a lot of information, maybe have a second eyes on that. But I think it's a collaboration within that accounting team to see the same information, and it's not just dual control. It's really looking at everything that is communicated within the company as it relates to the ins and outs, and everybody being on the same page. And if that requires, a routine or standard meeting to do that, I think that will certainly alleviate any type of compromise. I always call it compromise because it's so impactful. So that would be my recommendation from that standpoint.
Thank you, Jeff. We've had another question pop in. And this is, our construction company does not receive checks from our client at the office. Instead, we receive all checks, including quite large ones, via PO box. Given the high volume of check fraud and UPS fraud, is there an alternative Oakworth recommendation? And there are a couple of different ways that you can work with your vendors and your customers on getting checks converted to other payment types. I'm going to ask JB to jump in on that one and see if she can give us some comments.
Absolutely. Certainly there are ways in which you can set up or give your vendors the account information that can be sent electronically. And then that way the money is coming directly into the account. We also have, of course, we have a lockbox procedure that can also be very useful in that situation. It just depends on, how quickly you want to access the funds and that sort of thing.
Thanks, JB. And I think too, when a lot of companies, and Jeff covered this a little bit, will go to a process of account segmentation. And so when you want to set up an account for your AR specifically, it is separating that from the operating relationship, because you are providing that account number to others. So it is establishing a specific AR account that you can then direct payments to. A lot of cases, people don't want you debiting their account for a payment that's owed to you. So they prefer to push that to you. And that's a good way to maybe protect the overall relationship. So if fraud does ever occur on that, you can quickly shut it down and replace it with a new account. All right, I've got a few more questions to handle, to cover here. Let's see. I'm going to direct this one to Tyler, which is, who is most impacted by corporate fraud? I mean, who's targeted the most? We see it's kind of broad based, but we probably run across different scenarios or that seem to be common or more common. So Tyler, if you could take that maybe.
Yeah. I think kind of, who's the most common, person kind of be targeted for fraud, honestly. I mean, everybody's kind of a target at this point, but what I have seen kind of in the past year or so has been new associates for companies that have just been added on. A lot of times these bad guys follow somebody on LinkedIn, they see somebody just joined a company, and then they contact that new employee directly, either through text message or email, kind of disguising themselves as a situation that I saw recently was a new employee that was hired, got a text message that said, "Hey, this is the CEO of your company. I need you to go buy some gift cards and bring them up to my office here." And we saw the new employee kind of get up and leave, and we're like, "Hey, where are you going?" She's like, "Well, I just got a text message from our CEO." We're like, "Sit down, let's talk about this." And of course, it turned out to be a scam. So that's kind of where I'm seeing them. Also, just kind of whenever with new accounts that are being added to a business, just double, kind of we've said before, is just double checking those credentials, calling the number that you have on file, not the one on the email, and going from there.
Thanks, Tyler. And let's see if we have any more questions that have popped up. And I don't see any at this time. One thing to mention, right now we're in the Christmas and holiday season. Everybody has a lot of packages coming from various vendors to their house. Just remember, from a personal standpoint, if you are unsure of a link that a delivery service is sent to you or a vendor, don't click it. Go back to the original order email to verify your tracking instructions, because there are a lot of scams out there right now that are trying to take advantage of the timing of the year. Again, thank everybody for your participation today. If you have questions, please reach out to your Oakworth client advisor, to your Oakworth Treasury management team, and we will have resources available for you, including a recorded copy of this presentation. Thank you and have a great day.